Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine.
Well, hello, ladies.
Hey!
I got all my bisons in the house tonight.
You know, $40 million Richard Bisons.
$41 million.
How much?
$41 million.
Oh,
gotta add that one that Ta-Nehisi Coates and
right.
Camilla Forbes and Susan Cletchy Watkins. All right. And what they bring into the house. One thing what people need to know though, with that being the case, is that our budget, we almost have a $1 billion budget. So that money is good, but it's not like the end all be all.
Right.
And
no.
Everybody don't really
this time.
Yeah, everybody don't really understand that all the time. So we're gonna let some more people get on board and come on tonight. Hey, Mattia, what's going on? Carlos Scott, what's happening in the ATL besides the heat? We got Sandra, Yvette Anderson down there in Florida or in Jamaica, depending on where you are, Sandra. I know you. And Kevin, what's going on? Mr. Howard, what's going on with you? So, Miss Gina Smith.
Yes.
What's happening? What's going on?
Busy.
Good.
Busy and blessed.
All right. And Melanie, how's everything with you?
Everything is great. Enjoying life.
Good. So tonight, everybody, we have a great conversation. I have two very interesting women who I feel dearly about. They are respected in their craft as far as what they do and what they bring to the table. And this is about we as a community, as the African American community, and making sure that we prepare ourselves when it comes down to elder care and when it comes down to us just taking care of our business, when it comes down to trust, wills, and estates, and also coming up with our own health proxy. This is something that I took on about a year and a half ago of sitting down, and it took me a long time to really figure it out. But once I figured it out, I really enjoyed and glad that I did, my whole trust and estates and my health proxy. So now I feel good about it. But the sad part about this, and the reason why I have you here, and it's kind of one of those things where we have to nudge people, but we have a really big elephant in the room, and that elephant in the room is COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And so as we have known, it has now, killed over 150,000 people in this country, and it really has hit our community really, really bad. So in that regard, I have Gina Smith, who is a lawyer, who is based in Chicago, Illinois. And then I have Melanie Felton, which is my guest, who has an elder care facility, or how would you describe your facility? So I don't want to take the word.
It's a personal care home. That's what we call it in the state of Georgia, but really it's an assisted living, but it's on a personal, small scale.
Yes, and I love what you did to it, and we're going to let everybody know about what's going on with you. So we're going to start out, we're going to toss it to Gina first, because with COVID, a lot of people, this affected a lot of families. It affected a lot of people in the way that they didn't know it was going to affect them. And COVID took out some families. It really wiped out some families. You had more than 1, 2, 3, so up to 4 people in some families were gone. So that leaves, first of all, an emotional stress on the family members who are left behind. But also, too, it leaves things in disarray for people to plan their lives, to be able to grieve properly. We couldn't grieve properly because of COVID, so we couldn't have funerals. But I wanted to talk to you about what it is that we can do as a group of people, and you really don't have to be black or white. I mean, you could be anything, black, white, Hispanic, whatever the case may be. But what are the basic things that we need to do to prepare ourselves for, in the event that we lose a loved one?
Right. So thanks, Charlie, again for having me on. I have to let everybody know that when I first launched my solo practice about 3 years ago, Charlie was gracious enough to have me onto his podcast. And so he knows a lot of what I'm already going to say because he heard me say it and he's already done his own plan. But what I would like to stress is that obviously the time of COVID has everyone thinking about their mortality and getting their affairs in order. But even if there wasn't COVID, there are like 3 primary estate planning documents that you need to make sure that, first of all, you have some peace of mind about what's going to happen to your stuff should you become terminally ill or incapacitated or pass away. So those are a will and or a living trust. That's number 1. The second leg of the stool is your healthcare directives or proxies. Depending on what state you're in, they're called different things, but we'll talk about them more. And then a durable power of attorney for property. And that's especially important because most of us, you may or may not have had a family member that was stricken by COVID. If they were hospitalized, they certainly couldn't handle their affairs for themselves, but their bills were still coming in, their mortgage needed to be paid, the utilities needed to be paid. And if you didn't have a document like a durable power of attorney, you would not have been able to access their bank accounts and their other financial assets in order to give them the care that they need, the support that they needed. So I consider those the 3 basic documents that you need. Melanie, I'm sure you have a lot of experience with the healthcare proxies or living. I mean, they're called healthcare proxies,
will, whatever.
Healthcare directives, living wills,
Whatever.
they have all kinds of things, but they all accomplish the same end.
Yes.
Right. Who's gonna take care of your affairs? Is basically
Who's gonna handle your shit?
exactly. So let's take the healthcare proxy number and let's go through that and really, what does that really do for the person who has that? And does that need to be a family member? Can it be a friend? Can it be a foe? I mean, who does it need to be?
Okay, so depending on any of those names and how they're used interchangeably, what they do is they give you the ability to name the person that you trust and that you know will follow your wishes should you become seriously ill. So you name an agent. An agent is basically empowered to step into your shoes and speak on your behalf and to communicate with your physicians and healthcare providers about the type of care that you want to receive. Some of them are so specific as for you can say, well, you can even add in specific instructions. I had one client who was a healthcare provider. So when she got like more involved in her healthcare directives than anybody else had, like she specifically said, basically, don't keep me alive artificially, right?
Right.
And she also said, if I have any of these degenerative diseases, don't let me go. And she gave me all the medical names for them. And those were instructions that I added to her document. But she, having worked in healthcare, she knew specifically what those end of life situations look like, how you can have family members fighting amongst each other about, someone may want to keep you alive forever, ever. Someone else may know that your wish is not to be artificially sustained, and they're fighting with each other. And if neither of them are in possession of that document, then, it's a standoff. And when you're in that type of situation, the last thing you need are family members fighting with each other over your care.
This is true. And I know in mine, speaking of that, I'm specific as far as what I have in my healthcare proxy. I have, I do not keep me, I think it's
DNR.
Yeah.
That's what TVA calls them.
After 4, if I'm on life support, no more than, because I'm like, okay, I kind of planned it out. If I'm on life support, don't have me on there after 2 weeks, because then I'm going to be a vegetable. But then after 4 weeks, if I'm on a monitor, cut me off, stuff like that. So I really did I really broke it down of knowing that I don't want to, really lead people on, but also too, I want to leave enough time for if I do have improvements, come back. But at the same point in time, if I'm not then you got my wishes. So, Melanie, speaking of this, since you are with your personal care home in Atlanta, and congratulations
Thank
for that. And we'll put up the website later when we leave here.
Okay.
When people come into and they are admitted,
Yes.
those things that you request,
Yes.
when they come in. If not, what is it that you look for when people come to you as an assisted living
Well, the first thing is something that Gina mentioned, and thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Gina mentioned a healthcare proxy. That's important for us because, in fact, with the personal care home, assisted living, we're taking care of your loved one 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if something would happen, obviously we need to be able to act in their behalf. If something would come about, in an emergency situation. So there are a couple of things. So, we have that in place when you're trying to be admitted. When a person is trying to be admitted to our personal care home, you have to have a negative TB test now. You have to have
what's a negative TB test?
TB, tuberculosis.
Oh.
TB is still around, believe it or not. I was exposed at Howard, and every time I do a TB test, I'm positive. So,
wow.
So you have to have a negative TB test, or if it's a positive TB test, you have to have your X-ray has to be clear, so you're not carrying that to your other, residents. Then obviously a negative COVID test now. So we're doing that. And then you also just have to have, some of the things like, physician's orders. You have to have some signed papers saying that we're allowed to take care of you. Just some of the basic things that you would think that you would need to allow for someone to care for you without breaking the law, so that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I had an experience, and I'll say this real quickly, I think, because it really brings it home. It's not even a hypothetical anymore. I had a client right after Illinois went on shutdown. We went on total stay-at-home orders, and I had a client, real unfortunate situation. She was like 80 some odd years old, but her daughter had contracted COVID and died.
Okay.
Her daughter had a pretty large estate, but she's in an assisted living facility, which was on lockdown as well, because you know how difficult it was for them to protect the patients.
Right.
So you can imagine me trying to communicate with an 80-year-old woman with a little bit of diminished capacity, who obviously isn't very technology savvy or anything like that, but had all these things. Her daughter died without a will or anything like that.
Oh, no.
Didn't have an estate plan herself. And so between the two of them, it was a $1 million plus estate involved. And you're just completely paralyzed and unable. There was some suspicion that some fraudulent activity might have happened with the bank account. No way. Nobody had any authority to access or to do anything.
Wow.
So
we also have, you have to have a proxy caregiver, for medications too. So that's another thing that people have to have. But really, it's a big responsibility. To have an assisted living or a personal care home like I have. I have the home care business. It's a lot easier. Everybody's in the home. Everybody's kind of in charge. If someone doesn't show up, normally a family member's there. But for us, if a caregiver doesn't show up, it's going to be me working that day, or my family member.
So how does, so talk to everybody where your facility is.
Okay.
You just open it up. Congratulations on that. What are you offering? How many beds do you have? And then what are you doing now to take precautions in a state like Georgia, which is now a hot spot, to prevent the tragedies that we've seen over the news in a lot of assisted living and nursing homes?
Okay. So anyway, I don't know if everybody knows, it's Life Balance Personal Care Home. We're in Woodstock, Georgia. And actually, it's in a really good location. It's right off of Bells Ferry Road. If people are in Atlanta that know that area, it's close to a Walmart. So it's just, I envision my residents, having a field trip to Walmart, Dollar Tree across the street.
Right.
Anyway, we can hold up to 6 residents, are all private rooms. We have 3 shared bathrooms, but they're pretty large. I have one caregiver that's actually going to be the one living in the home with them. She's going to do nights. She won't do days. We'll have a day people, a staff, during the day, and she'll kind of overlap that some, and then I'll come in for activities. Some resident eligibility. The big thing for me is that you can't have too big of a range of mobility people. You can't have wheelchair bound and mobile people if you want to make it quaint and be able to have some activities outside the home. And that's kind of what I envision. So some of the requirements, you can have dementia. You can be a little crazy. You can have bipolarism. It's okay. We can handle that. You can repeat yourself 20 times a day, 100 times a day. I don't have a problem with that. But you can't be a wanderer. You can't be a runner. Because that's right there is just really scary. Basically, when I say mobility, they have to be able to walk with a walker. They have to be able to walk with a cane, but they don't have to walk far. They just have to be able to, even if they need moderate assistance in and out of the bed, taking a shower, it's fine. Those are the kind of people we're looking for. A lot of people in the facility that I've gone in, some people require only female or only males. For me personally, I don't have a problem with, having a male and females. I kind of have separate wings where I can have, mostly there's always women, unfortunately, Charlie. And in places like this, there's lots of women. I don't know what we do to you men, but like we
don't live that long. They ain't living that long.
Unfortunately, Charlie, you're right.
So anyway, but like I said, co-ed is fine. We have 2 dining rooms. So we have a room where for people that possibly would need more care and feeding, because sometimes you get to a point where you can't feed yourself. So sometimes it's a copycat. So sometimes the people that can feed themselves, they're like, well, feed me. I want to be fed too. So you kind of have to separate those, kind of people. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and then we'll have activities. We're going to do some field trips. I'm planning to have an entertainment coming in the house at least once a week. And I really want it to be something, a place where I would want to be if I was in aging in place in a home. I mean, this is a place that I thought, like when my parents were getting disabled, and they're both deceased now, but I really, really wanted a place like this for my mother. I mean, I would have killed to have a place like this. And so I envision this house being a place where I would want to be, and that, I'm not just there just to take care and just give the basic needs, but just, I wanted them to love the way they live, like Charlie likes to live. Okay. Do a little plug.
I love it. So anyway, one of I guess the question is, during this time for you in the state of Georgia.
Okay.
State of Georgia mandated what it is that you need to do to prevent COVID from happening, because you have people coming and going in your facility. So what are you doing to protect people, to make sure that nobody, tests positive?
Okay. So first of all, it's sad to say they've given a lot of mandates to hair salons, restaurants, offices, but I haven't received any mandates at all on what I'm supposed to do. That's pretty sad. Now, when
everybody out there in America, if you live in Atlanta, Georgia, if you got an elderly person in an assisted living home or a nursing home, you need to really check on them, because you hear right now, this is really amazing.
So what I'm trying to say is, each facility is making up their own rules. For me personally, what I put in place was, I actually asked a friend that owns several facilities in Denver. And so I had to come up with my own policy and procedures for COVID, just for COVID. And so some of the things that we're going to do is, first of all, you have to be negative when you come in. You're going to be tested. I actually have a place that I can send them to go to. I have a place that's a rapid test place, and also, a regular place, it's like 5 to 7 days, the testing, but you know how you've heard about that. The caregivers, when they come in, we have to be tested, temperature checks. I have a series of questions that everybody that enters the house will use and answer correctly, to make sure they're negative. Washing hands, disinfected. And then basically the caregivers that are going to be coming in and out, they're going to have the same things go on. Now, if they, for some reason, if they test positive, then immediately they will, obviously be quarantined and have to get tested and will not be able to come back to work until they have that negative test. Some of the things that I would hope to do to prevent some of this too is not that I don't want family members to come in. I would like for them to come. We have, fortunately, I have like a little small area in the front of the area that if they wanted to visit, they're socially distanced and away from everybody else in the house. But same thing, they would be asked questions, temperature takes and all that, checks. And then the other thing is always, some of the things that I feel like is important is the smart video calling that we're doing. So I haven't ordered it yet. I am going to order it, but anyway, it hasn't come yet. But a Facebook portal, I don't know if you're familiar with that. Mm-hmm. So my plan is to have that in each room so people don't feel like they want to see their loved ones and being able to talk to them back and forth, and they can actually call them from their room and communicate. Because a lot of times it's just a matter of seeing them, especially if somebody has dementia. I mean, you can call them, 5 different times. They probably didn't know that they talked to you like an hour ago. So this way it'll kind of keep that people in and out of your house. And then because we only have the 6 residents, I have 1 caregiver that's going to live there. So, she's not going out that much. Then you have, I'm going to have the day, staff, and then I have a weekend. So I would say there's going to be 3 people max that you kind of have to control. And
are you going to test those people?
Yes. They'll be tested regularly. We're planning on now in my own care business that I'm doing. We do that now. Okay. We test around once a month. Obviously it's more often if you've been exposed. Some of my caregivers are in big facilities. And something that during the height of COVID, I was having people drop out employees were just, I can't come back to work. I can't work. So luckily I have a good staff and a database to draw from. So if anyone, is positive, I have someone to work and take care of the residents. Now a resident, if they become positive, it's unfortunate. They're going to have to be isolated in their room. And that's where that video comes in contact. And then, of course, we have the N95 mask that everybody's going to wear, especially with close contact. And we're just going to have to take precautions as if, we were a hospital.
Okay. Gina, this comes into play with you in the sense of someone with their will and trust. And you said that there are 3 things that we need to have, because I saw a question over there. Oh. A will and living trust, a healthcare proxy, and a durable power of attorney.
Right.
We didn't make mention of the dual power of attorney because that's really important right now and key to what your last statement that you made. Talk about that, and then talk about the will and living trust. And then I want to bring the connection in on elder care, which is something that a lot of people don't plan for. And so how do we make it affordable, or what is it that we can do in order to make sure that we can have a good quality of life in our elderly years?
Yeah. Okay. So when I mentioned those top 3 documents, they were the will or living trust. They can be interchangeable or they can work in conjunction with one another. And I'll talk about that more. The durable power of attorney is like a powerful document. Mm-hmm. So it's powerful, and depending on whose hands it's in, it can be problematic. So because it really does, unless you limit, like in Illinois and in most states, it lists all these different powers that agent is authorized to carry out. So banking, mortgaging of a home, signing contracts, giving access to your digital assets. So if you do online banking, if you can have, your agent can have access to all of those things. So it's a great document, but it's a document that should be executed with care and a little bit of a caution about your agent.
Right.
My parents are of the age where, many of their friends are experiencing, dementia, Alzheimer's, and things like that. And anytime I talk about a power of attorney document, they roll their eyes, and they got a story to tell about somebody's child who had a power of attorney document, and they put a second mortgage on the house and pulled all the equity out of the house. And then when it was time for the parent to go and to get nursing care or in-home care, there was no money left because the kid who had the power of attorney document abused it. So, but
does that person have to be your family member? Can it be?
Not.
Okay.
It does not. And like there's some people who decide that I trust Angie to be my power of attorney for a property because I know she's financially savvy and conservative, but she might not be able to, make the end of life decision. And so somebody else is the healthcare agent, or vice versa. They do not have to be the same people. They do not have to be a family member. Like you might not have family that you trust to handle your shit. So, or it might be someone like who has good sense and is financial savvy, but may be easily influenced by another family member. And so you just want to be careful about who you give the document to. And if you think they shouldn't be able to do everything, then you should tailor and limit the powers that they have under that document.
That's good advice. Because I think I did that too. I mean, my sisters are my power of attorney, and then I have a different person for my health proxy, and I live in, I just based it off of, time, responsibility, who's responsible, who's not emotional, all of those things.
All of that.
I think you really have to sit with yourself when you're doing this process and going through this process and really to make it work. One question for you was, Sonia Lockett said, can you set up trust and directives for anyone or only in the state where you are licensed? That's for you.
I will only do it in the state in which I'm licensed. Like I have like people that I partner with because unfortunately or fortunately, I get, people from all over the country. That's the benefit of being a Howard alum, right? But, I want to stay within my rules. And right now my license is only active in Illinois, but I can certainly like network and refer you to other people or work with someone else to get your estate plan done. Sorry, big sister.
Y'all a mess. Okay. So explain to everybody what the will and living trust compared to.
They are both testamentary documents, right? You hear last will and testament. It's your opportunity to say, because I'm in sound mind, this is what I own, and this who I want to have my stuff. So they both accomplish that. They allow you to name your property and to say who you want to receive it. And when I say property, I don't just mean real estate. That's what everybody thinks about when we say property. Property is personal property, which is basically everything but real estate. So your bank accounts, your investments, your artwork, because I'm looking at that painting, Charlie, that you have that I always want for my house. Jewelry, anything of value is your personal property. Your real property is just that, real estate. Right. And so you name what that stuff is, and then you say who you want to have it or how you want it to, if it's monetary assets, how you want to split. Both of those documents do that. The primary difference between a living trust and a will is that a living trust can be administered outside of the probate court. Wills have to go through probate, and probate is time consuming and expensive and burdensome depending on what's going on in the estate. So your living trust done correctly, and if you have, again, a responsible person that can follow the instructions in the document, you can do outside of the probate court. So Charlie, when we talked on the podcast a couple of years ago, and this is the question I get all the time when I do webinars, people say, well, why can't you just do LegalZoom or Susie Orman? Why do you need an attorney?
And you know what?
I got a real life experience about why you don't want a Susie Orman plan. So I don't want to take up all the time, but I can tell you about it if you really want to know.
That's a question that I have for you, because a lot of people say, I don't need to do that. I mean, I think personally, when I did it with someone who knew me, number one. Number two, they methodically went through everything and gave me options and told me what I could do. But also, too, I had previously saw a friend of mine's, they let me see their will and trust. And I was like, wow, he went everything down to who gets the Cartier watch, who gets the this piece, you know. So I was like, okay, I got to be like that. So that's what I did.
Right.
But don't forget to put that painting, like go back and change it.
No, Charlie, Gina, I was the executor of my mother, father, and my sister's trust. And I'm telling you,
it's a job.
Well, my husband, forget it. We're just going to have to hire. If he goes before me, he's got no way. I'm not going to do it. I am telling you, it's so stressful. I mean, I didn't know really anything about it when my sister passed away. And I mean, it was years trying to just figure things out. I mean, even though she had everything organized, it just was
overwhelming, especially if
you're mourning and you just have all these things to do. And if you're poor, you don't have anything, it's a lot easier. But when you have all these moving parts, I mean, right now, I think she probably has some money in an account that I probably didn't get to. I mean, it's just crazy.
But I think that happened because I know I did that through my aunt. Then I had to help my mother through my father because she couldn't do it. And so it's just all that responsibility. And then you don't really have a chance to grieve either when you're fully inside. So sometimes it is better to have some person removed who really know you or know family and everything like that. So I think you just really have to sit with it and really think through it. Because when you think through it, what happens for us as African Americans, you're missing the legacy of being able to pass things on and pass things down. So why go get the good job? Why go get the house and all of that, and then don't set it up? Because I, as a real estate agent, I'm always saying real estate, trust in estate. So after you see me and close at the closing table, you should be rolling down the street and seeing Gina and putting that asset immediately into a will and a trust. So then, therefore, if you walk out the next day and get hit by a car, you're protected. Because every states have different probate situations where you have to go through all of that. And it's, at that point in time, like you're saying, if you don't have access to a bank account and you got to put somebody in a funeral.
Yes, it's expensive. I mean, I thank God for Dennis Felton. I mean, my sister, she, I just didn't know enough to ask her, but I remember people telling me, Melanie, go to the bank now and get a few dollars out, try to take the money out. I mean, it was scary, but luckily we had the money to be able to bury her. And I mean, it's not like she didn't have the money, but like you said, you can't
get to it. Yeah.
Right. And then I think when you get all of a certain age, there are people that you do business with or that you work that you have to really let in. Because I think what happens with my mother and father, they did some things that I wouldn't have done, but they didn't let me in.
Right.
So you know it until after the fact. And then when I saw it, I was like, y'all did this? Like, why did y'all do this?
Yeah.
Y'all did that. But it was them being private. And we as a people sometimes are private. So
I had this conversation with one of my judge mentors yesterday. We, Black people in particular, we have all these hangups around, talking about mortality, not wanting nobody to know our business and all those sorts of things. And it ends up doing a disservice to our family members or those people that would stand to inherit from us. And, in terms of doing a will and stuff, I think it's kind of like a generational thing, of course we couldn't own property for most of our time here in these yet to be United States. And then even when we did begin to acquire property, we were always at risk of being swindled.
Right.
by, by white folks, frankly. And so we didn't trust the court system and things like that. And that stuff has become generational. Like, those fears, that lack of knowledge, everything has been passed down generation to generation. And, you end up like, I got messy estates that I'm trying to untangle right now. And when I said the Susie Orman plan, one of them is messy because this is a modest woman, but who was really financially savvy, and she acquired multiple pieces of real estate, right? Nobody would ever know that she owned all the real estate that she owned. And she learned that she was ill, didn't have much time to live, and she went and got the Susie Orman plan. Why? Because everybody loves Susie and everybody trusts Susie.
Right.
But when I tell you, and she tried to do the living trust that Susie Orman has in her plan and didn't do it correctly. And now I'm in probate court after not being able to go to court for 3 months because COVID, the court system was shut down for 3 months.
Right.
Just trying to get her affairs in order. And every time I pull back a layer of the onion, I find another problem.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things could have been addressed during an estate planning session with an actual attorney.
So
like, what have you found straightened out before we got to that point?
So what have you found during your course of doing this in trust and estates have been how do you motivate your family members to do this?
For my client base, who are primarily Black folk, the thing that motivates them most is they see something happen with somebody else when their auntie died, and they see the mess that results, and that motivates them to get it done. Wow. And then I have relationship with financial planners, and so financial planners will tell their clients, you need to get your estate plan in place. Mm-hmm. So it works two ways. But mostly it's almost like a scare straight thing, unfortunately, most of the time.
Okay.
I have a question about, I'm sorry. I had just a question about property. I mean, real estate property. People always say, I used to say, you just can't will a single property to 4 or 5 different people. I mean, do you feel like
you can, but then they're fighting with each other.
Right. What about
one person's going to want to keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Somebody else is going to want to sell it.
That's what happened.
You can do it.
I'm that person.
I wanted to know, right?
That happened to me with my aunt. She left it to 3 of us, and then you have to be on the same level, same playing field as to say what you want to do. Do you want to renovate the property? Do you want to sell the property? I was getting into property, trying to renovate the property, wanting to take things out. And my sisters were like, oh, we can't throw that stuff away. I'm like, but are you here trying to keep it? I don't think so. So you get it in there. I mean, we worked it out. That wasn't a problem. And eventually we sold it. But also, too, you have to think about if you leave someone something, can they pay the taxes on it?
Yes.
All of these years, especially when you're talking real estate. Can they pay a land? Can they pay taxes on it during all this time? Because whoever you leave things to, I'd always say this, we always want to leave it to everybody. So if you got 3 children, a third of you, a third of Gina, a third of Melanie. Well, Gina's over in Europe. I'm in New York.
Living my best life.
Not caring. And Melanie, you out in California and you are drugged up. And
whoa. I gotta be on drugs. Well, anyway.
You're the crazy one. So anyway, but that happens, and then you got to divide. Then you're trying to force everybody to sell. Gina is, like you said, she's out and living her best life, and I'm the one stuck with trying to do the deal, and it falls on me. So the parents have to really think about who's going to be the responsible one that I need to leave this to in order for me to make sure that everything is taken care of, because they need to say, well, I'll leave it to Charlie because he's going to make sure Melanie and Gina are taken care of no matter what the situation is. So I want to tie this together with you guys because, but let me go and ask, there's a couple of questions that came through first. Where do I set up trust, powers of attorney, etc.? I'm living in one state now, but my property is in another state. Do I set up in the state I live or what? Where does she do that?
Okay, so that person that has property in two different places, you really need a plan. And because there's a way for you to consolidate both estates under one, but it's much easier if you have a document. So I would say in the state that you reside, do your estate plan with an attorney in that state, but make them aware of the property in the other state, and then leave instructions within your documents about what you want to happen with that property. If you do it under a living trust, then they can likely deal with that property in the other state without going through the probate court. But if you die without a will or you die with a will, you're going to be dealing with estates in the two different jurisdictions, which is, you can imagine, a nightmare. Yeah. So, but it's better to think about it now and handle it now, as opposed to, waiting for the eventuality to happen. And, whomever is in trust that you would trust with your stuff may not even know you have the property in the other state. At least you can identify it and say what you want to happen with it.
Right. Okay. Now let's tie y'all two together, because a lot of people have not planned for, and it's very hard too, also for long-term care, or what I call elder care, of when you are thinking about your next life. We think about retirement, but then we don't think about what it takes to actually, if you become incapacitated, or if you lose a loved one, or if you lose potential income from a loved one that was bringing in a Social Security check or something of that magnitude, and now your cost of living has also decreased, not depreciated, decreased.
Charlie, when we talked on the podcast.
How does that work? Melanie.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to talk about my situation. So with the couple things, you have options as you get older. If you need more care, if you don't have children to take care, they can take care of you, or you can't move into your parent, your child's house or a friend or whatever. I like a couple of things. One, you can do home care. Sometimes, even though I have a personal care home, sometimes, aging in place in your home is the best option for people. You just have to know what you want to do, and you have to be able to plan for it. Mm-hmm. It's expensive to be home and get care, 24-hour care. I mean, the growing rate, I'm actually kind of probably low. I probably charge for a living rate somewhere around $240, $250 a day for 24 hours. You do 250 times 30 days. I mean, that's a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
So that, that's an option. Sometimes you don't need night care. You just need day care. I can sleep fine. I'm fine. I need daycare. Then you're talking about $20 an hour, $22 an hour, $24 an hour, depending on where you live. Mm-hmm. With the personal care home, it can range from about $3,000 for okay care to about $6,000 or $7,000, depending on the level of care, and also depending on where you are and where what type of home it's in. So the best way to pay for it, to me, is either saving your money, if you have a lot of money to save, so you can afford it, and putting that into a stash, or you get a long-term care policy that can pay for that. And when you get a long-term care policy, I always feel like you should know what that policy is. Will it pay for in-home care, or will it only pay for assisted living? Or will it only pay for independent care? Or will it only pay for skilled nursing? Sometimes you'll get a benefit where you have to actually be in a facility in order for it to pay. You might not even be in a place like mine. It has to be a certain type of facility. So you should know that when you get your insurance. Then sometimes, I learned this from a friend, I don't know if he's watching, but anyway, he told me about, there's, I guess, and you might know this, Gina, there's life insurance with a long-term care benefit. And
I just purchased some.
Yeah. Okay. Now listen.
I just purchased some.
That is the bang for your buck. Okay. Yeah. If you are looking into, getting life insurance, most people want to have it. And to have that long-term benefit is so big time. It might cost you $600 a month, but it's better than having to pay down the line $5,000 or $6,000 a month. I mean, who has that?
Right.
And then some people, if they have kids, they want to leave money to their children. You know, people talk about, well, Medicare will pay. Medicare does not pay for that. Just
come close to paying for it. Does not come close.
Okay. Medicare pays for skilled nursing, which is the old-fashioned nursing home.
Right.
And let me just
It's
tell you,
not where you want to be.
exactly. Some of the nicer places do not take Medicare, period. And
Right.
so if I say nothing else, it's either save your money, get you a plan to be able to, you know, just enjoy life and not have to worry about expenses. I mean, because that's what I find that people just don't plan for.
Yeah. So long-term
Long-term care insurance.
care insurance that you need to get, and that's through any like insurance provider like Geico, Allstate, anybody.
Oh no. They right lately they only have a few companies that are offering it. Like Genworth is a big company.
Yeah, and the reason is, Charlie, like it's not many that provide it because you know we're in the stage where baby boomers are reaching retirement and needing advanced care. So from an actuarial standpoint,
It's not
like,
cost effective.
they can't. They're not really happy to write a whole bunch of new policies for it because you got all these boomers transitioning into needing this, you know, this elder care. And so it's not that many companies that do it anymore.
So what is the future? What is the future of us growing old when we get to that place?
I have some ideas.
Yeah.
I want to tell you about one thing, what the policy that I did is not a long-term care policy because that was a little bit more costly that I wanted to take on right now, but you can actually do a term life policy that has the option for you to cash it in. It's not at full face value. If you need long-term care, you can cash it in and buy it towards your long-term care. And then if it turns out that you don't need it, then it just goes to the named beneficiaries of the policy. So that's less expensive than your long-term policy, but still gives you the benefit of having a pot of money to go into to pay for your long-term.
And then the other thing with that, with long-term care insurance, like my parents both had it. My dad never used his, never. And I mean, you can't will it to anybody. So, I mean, to do the life, you know, life policy or the term life, to me, it's just a win-win.
And you can borrow against that term life policy, like that term life policy, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't feel like you need it, you can borrow against it once you get older or whatever and get your money back.
Flexibility.
Yeah, you have that flexibility. So what do you think of, Melanie? Because you said you have some ideas as far as what we're going to be doing.
Okay, well, I talked to Charlie on his podcast, you know, actually probably, when was that? In February before the Rona?
Right.
January? So anyway.
Somewhere.
The ideas that I had back then is something I still love. And that is what I call senior shared housing. Okay. So it's a little different thing. It's a little different. That's right. It's a little different from the personal care home that I'm in. But basically everybody decides, you know what, we're going to purchase this home or, you know, and we're going to share it. You know, we are going to have our space. We're going to build it. And then when we get ill or we get sick, we can hire an agency like mine, a home care agency, to come in and we can share the costs for people to be taking care of us. So I like that idea. I think that I'm a really social creature. So I cannot see myself not being with people. Okay. I don't even care. Right now, I'm thinking about I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. I mean, I don't even care if they have their wives with me, their kids. I mean, I'm just saying I cannot do it out here. I cannot be by myself. Like I cannot do it. I thrive off of people.
Yeah.
So for me, that is a way to, you know, have a fulfilling life, you know? I mean, I feel like if I had my girlfriends from Howard, you know, and my crew close by, I would really love that. You know, and like I said, I got a husband too.
I like it. What
he
I
went to Howard. He went to Howard, so you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it from the standpoint that, you know, it makes, number one, it makes sense. So you can buy a house, you can build a house, you can share the house, but you're basically sharing the resources
Yes.
of the nurse coming in, and they're just tending to the house.
Right.
So you don't have to go to anywhere, and you can charge an hour, and everybody can share into that expense. And
Yes.
so it makes it, you know, livable and doable for a lot of families of when you get older. Because I just think our mindset is so totally different from our mothers and fathers about how we want to see the end of our years.
Yeah.
So I know, like, I would love it. You know, I love, like, right now.
You know you would, Charlie.
When the crew gets together, we go to Martha's Vineyard.
Your whole Martha Vineyard's crew,
Yeah. You know? So I love that.
You can live next door with my crew, and then we straight.
I know.
Name it Bison Way.
Exactly.
It'll be an HU party.
Well, I do have a suggestion, and this is what we should do. And I'm throwing this out, and I think, Melanie, I told you this before.
Yes.
What I would love to see is an HBCU assisted living house.
Yes.
And in that way, you have people who have like mind, like spirit. They know you can plan activities around. You can go to the football games, the basketball.
Those who are able to go to homecoming.
And all of that kind of stuff.
That's true.
It's so much of a thing of what I see in the future of how people live and what we could do. So we got to get on that.
I like that idea too. And actually, like my core crew of girls, you know, we got a group chat and everything. And the name of our group is the Golden Girls, because we, you know, we all have personalities and line up with Blanche and Sophia and everything else. But we talk about it halfway. But also, I think we would all be willing to do that type of living, right?
No, I think it's great, and I think it also cuts down on all the expenses.
Yeah.
So Gina, I want to just throw this to you because we're winding up at the top of the hour. We almost been an hour, which is crazy. But I could talk to you ladies all night long. But Gina, what in departing, basically, what do you want to leave the people with, knowing what it is that we should do and how should we take care and handle our affairs?
You know, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. I talked about, you know, my one situation with a COVID impacted family. I had my own personal COVID scare in that, like, you know, I kind of went on like a social spree. I knew the lockdown was coming and I was like, well, I'm gonna get it in before we get locked out.
Right.
And I ended up hanging out with a couple of friends, both of whom ended up diagnosed. One of them had mild symptoms, you know, didn't have to be hospitalized. The other one who thought he was at death's door. And so, like, that was sobering for me because I was like, well, I was just with them. I hugged them, drank with them, everything, you know, went to get tested. But, you know, I could have been on the other, right. I could have been impacted and not had my affairs in order. So I would just say that, you know, and in terms, like, I don't think that everybody necessarily needs an attorney to do their document. If you have a very simple situation where you don't have real estate, you just have bank accounts and maybe a life insurance policy, you could probably get away with Susie's plan. But if you have real estate and you maybe have some more sophisticated assets and things like that, don't let it get tied up in the court. I mean, you know, by the time the lawyers and everybody are paid, creditors are paid and all that, you would have diminished the size of your estate that you could have passed on to everyone. I saw this quote from Robert Wright. He was the Secretary of Labor and Commerce under Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. And I use this quote all the time now. It's like, don't be bamboozled by the whole concept of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Most wealth in this country is inherited, not earned. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we got this big racial wealth gap because of all the structural things that have been in place. Mm-hmm. But now that we are in a position to acquire wealth, we need to be responsible about passing it on.
All right. I love that.
Estate planning and making gifts and things like that.
I love that. That's the true words, true are the words. Melanie, party.
I just want to say that I'm going to have my grand opening tomorrow.
Yes, life balance, health care, balancing care, compassion, and commitment.
There you go.
A great home.
Great home, personal care home. That's right. So basically, it's going to be at 6:30. I actually am going to go live because obviously, because of COVID, I can't really invite a million people. But I am going to go live and talk about the home, and I'll be probably going through with my phone through the house so everybody can see it. And I would just say that, you know, the biggest thing with taking care of yourself and taking care of your loved ones, or I think because we're at this age right now, because we're kind of having to consider it ourselves. My parents are already deceased. I've already kind of gone through all of this with them. One of the reasons why I started the business. And I would just say that, you know, have conversations with your family, get their desires, what they want. Don't wait. I mean, you know, have a conversation with your parents if they're young enough to still have a conversation, and just don't wait. Like you're saying, just don't wait.
And I think also I would add to that because you said if you, like Gina said, if you don't have any real estate or assets, you don't need but if you do, and if you have kids, I always say if you have kids.
Well, yeah, if you have kids, most certainly. I didn't say that you don't need one, but you know, look, I'm quite aware that some people hate lawyers and don't want to pay them. That's just a part of it. So if you want to go to LegalZoom and you want to go to Susie Orman, if you have a simple estate or you don't have a whole lot of property, and you can get past with that. But if you have like multiple pieces of properties and investments and all that type of stuff, a business.
For me, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I've acquired these businesses pretty fast. And I don't think I'm definitely not there. Like this conversation tonight is going to get me where I need to be. I mean, I have 3.
So you definitely want a living trust, and you want to put instructions in there for like your succession planning on your business. Like, what do you want to happen to it? Who do you trust to wind down your business or to sell it or to continue it?
Right.
It will just be in limbo without you having that written down.
And then the other thing is property. My plan was to always have 3 houses, 1 for each kid. That's it. Okay. Y'all can't fight. I'm going to decide who's going to get what and just be done with it. You know, like I'm not going to be leaving property to multiple people like my parents did to me.
Right.
Heck no.
You got to make decisions, you know, and stuff. But I love it. I hope this helped out everybody that was out there tonight. It's a great discussion. Unfortunately, we have to have this discussion, but it is a necessary discussion. This is the kind of discussion that you need to be having at the kitchen table when you're having dinner with your kids and talking to them about this. And as you said, building that legacy from generation to generation of kids. And Gina, you hit it the nail dead on the head when you said of how wealth was created in this country. It was passed down through 1, life insurance, number 1, and then also 2, they knew exactly the foundation and the structure of what they needed to do in order to make sure that their kids were taken care of. So if we want to see our institutions like the one and only Howard University, I have them in my will as well. Stuff like that. But they get a little cheap. But different things like that. If we want to see our institutions stay around, if we want to see our families stay around and be healthy without worrying, we need to take these necessary steps. So I want to thank you, ladies, for joining the show tonight.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'm building generational wealth now.
That's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing.
Right.
There you go. So I have all your information in the copy, in the post after this. So if anybody needs to get in contact with these ladies and they have questions, you feel free to do so. So from then on, y'all take care. See you out.
Bye-bye. Everybody be safe.
Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine.